Good evening. Thank you for being here. I am excited about tonight's lesson. I decided not to go into Judges because it's going to take me at least 2 weeks to go through. So we're going to take the first 2 Sundays in March to go through Judges. But Joshua's really a good moment to pause, because we have seen all the way up to this point how the children of Israel get into the promised land. And so I'm glad we're going to be able to do a review tonight, but we're going to do that through questions. So I'm going to divide you up into the 3 groups that you're in. So you're going to, somebody out of there, anybody out of there, everybody out of that section can just shout out the answer as we go. But I got a lot of questions, so we may be going through this quick. Hopefully I won't talk too fast. Some people are saying that I talk rather fast sometimes. Oh, I'm the one asking questions. No, I'm just kidding. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I did. I added an extra row so people would quit sitting up here. I can't take it. I did. Okay. Well, let's get started with our lessons. We're going to start on this side. How many books are in the Bible? 66. What are the 2 parts of the Bible divided into? New Testament and Old Testament. Now, I'm hearing people from both. When I point to a section, they're the only ones that answer. Come on now. How many books are in the Old Testament? 39 on this side. How many are in the New Testament? 27. What are the 5 categories? We'll just do one at a time. Now, what are the 5 categories of the Old Testament broken into? What are the first 5 books? The book of law. The next 12 are called the books of. Starts with history. All right. The next 5 are what? The what? Poetry. Good job. The next 5 are what? Major prophets. Last 12? The minor prophets. That's how they're broken down into each of those. 5, 12, 5, 5, 12. So that may help you to remember that as well. Back to this side. All right, the Bible is made up. We already said that. That's okay. How many books? They'll get the same question again. 66 books. And was written over a period of about how many years? 1,600 years. Somebody was close with 1,000. I thought that was pretty good. Was written by about how many men? Over how many men? In just a second. What did he say? Send him to the office. Get him out of here. All right. He is correct, though. It's over 1. What did you think? Over 40. Over 40. Over 40 men. But realize it's inspired by God, but it's only 1 book. Even though it's written over that period of 1,600 plus years, it's still 1 book inspired by God. The Septuagint. Hopefully you'll see what y'all remember about the Septuagint. What was the Septuagint? Oh, this side. What about this side? Oh, it's close. The Septuagint. Let's go to the next question. Maybe that'll help. All right. How did it get its name? It was written by how many men? 70. 70 men. So this group gets a bonus point. Why was it written? What was the Old Testament written in? What language? Hebrew. And they wanted it to be written into what language? The Greek. The Greek. So 300 years before Christ, the king of Egypt at the time said, we want all these historic, biblical, religious books transferred over into Greek. So they got 72, actually it was 72, even though they call it Septuagint for 70, 6 from each tribe of Israel, these men to come to Egypt to translate the Bible from Hebrew into Greek so that everybody would know, because Greek was the main language of all the area. Everywhere you went, Greek was the known language that most people were able to talk in. So they wanted everything written, and that's why the New Testament as well is written in Greek. All right, so let's keep going. Genesis. Go back to this side. What were the names of the first man and woman? Adam and Eve. Good job. How did God create woman? What did he take to create woman? The rib from who? From man. For what purpose? To be a helpmate. To be a support for her husband. To be a helper. So what did God command them not to do? What did he command Adam and Eve not to do? Eat of what? The tree of the knowledge of good and evil. What was their punishment when they did? They had to leave the garden. There was an eternal consequence too. What was it? They would die. They would die. So what were the names of Adam and Eve's three sons that we know of? Cain, Abel, and Seth. Why was Cain mad at Abel? God accepted his sacrifice, but not Cain's sacrifice. So now let's talk about the flood a little bit. Why did God want to destroy the earth and everything on it? Wickedness, so much so that every thought of man was evil. And he was sorry that he had made mankind. So who did he find that was righteous? Noah. Out of everybody that lived, the only one that we see that God looked at and said, this guy right here is righteous, was Noah. Out of everybody who lived. About how long did it take Noah to build the ark? 100 years, because we know in chapter 5 that he was around 500 years old and he was 600 when he got into the boat. So how many people were on the ark? 8. Who was that? Who were the 8? Good job, and their wives. So how many of each animal were taken on the ark? Somebody jumped in there at the end and got it. So how many of the clean animals? 7 of the clean animals, 2 of the unclean animals. So how many days did it rain? 40 days. 40 days. How long were they on the ark? About how long? About a year's time. If you see the date it says, I believe it was the second month, the first day they got on the boat. When they got off the boat, it was like the second month of the 15th day of the next year, something close to that. Abraham and Sarah. What did God promise Abraham there at the beginning? To be what? The what? Father of many nations. What was the name of Abraham's first son? Ishmael. Ishmael was his first son. But what was the name of Abraham's son of promise? Isaac. So what were the names of Isaac's 2 sons? Jacob and Esau. Who was the first to be born? Esau was the first to be born. So how did Jacob get the birthright? Tricked his brother. How? That's the blessing, the birthright. We'll get to that. That's my next question. What had happened to Esau? He was hungry. And there's Jacob back there making that good old stew. And he's like, if you give me your birthright, I'll give you food. Well, I'm going to die anyways. And so he got the birthright. So how did Jacob get the blessing from Isaac? Why did he have to put hair of sheep on his arm? Esau was hairy and then made the stew just like Esau would have made it for him. Or not what, venison? Was that what it was? Anyways, but he made the meal, and so Isaac was back here going, oh, this has to be Esau, let me bless you. And so he gave his blessing to Jacob. How many sons did Jacob have? 12 sons. Who was the youngest son? I threw a trick question in there. Benjamin. Benjamin was the youngest son. Who was the most loved son? Joseph was the most loved son. What did the brothers do to Joseph? So they put him in the pit first, and then they sold him into slavery. So who was Joseph sold to? I think it was, and somebody even said it, the Midianites. The Midianites sold him to who? Somebody in Pharaoh's chief named Potiphar. Potiphar, that's right. So what was Joseph accused of while serving in Potiphar's house? Trying to take his wife. So whose dream, so obviously he got put in prison, but whose dream did he interpret while he was in prison? The baker and the cupbearer. What happened to the baker? He died 3 days later. He was dead. What happened to the cupbearer 3 days later? He was restored back to his position, just as Joseph had interpreted. So what about Pharaoh's dream? What was Pharaoh's dream? The cows. What was the other part of it? The stalks. That's right. But how many fat cows were there? Plump cows? 7. How many skinny cows? 7. What was the meaning of this dream?
7 years of abundance.
That's right. 7 years of abundance, 7 years of famine. How long were the Israelites in Egypt? About 430 years, over 400 years. So 430 years. Now in Exodus, what did the new Pharaoh command happen to every male baby that was born to the Israelites? They were supposed to kill him right there on the spot. How long did Moses' parents hide him when he was born? 3 months, that's right. They hid him 3 months. What did they decide to do at the end of 3 months? To what? All right, so the consequences is, just so you know this, that he said if you have a male baby, you were supposed to throw it into the Nile River. So they did that, didn't they? They threw him, but what did they put him in? In a basket. They put him in a basket. So who found baby Moses? Pharaoh's daughter. Who was following along to watch baby Moses as he's floating down? His sister, Miriam. Who took care of baby Moses? Moses' mother. Miriam goes running up and says, hey, can I find somebody to help you take care of this baby? Moses' mother's able to take care of it. So where was Moses during his first 40 years? In Pharaoh's house. He lived in Egypt. Where was Moses during his second 40 years? Do what? Jethro's daughter. And then he was a shepherd. He took care of Jethro's sheep throughout those 40 years. What about his last 40 years? What did he do? In the wilderness. He's out in the wilderness. What amazed Moses while on Mount Horeb, we talked about this in the sermon this morning, while he was keeping the flock, what caught his attention? The burning bush not being consumed. Who went with Moses to talk to Pharaoh? Aaron. He didn't want to go alone. He didn't feel like he was able to do this, and so he wanted his brother to go with him. Oh, we're going to start one by one. See how many of these we can name. List of 10 plagues. Just name one of them. What? Water to blood. Frogs. Locusts. Lice. Flies. The boils. Hell. Hell came down. Darkness. Death of the firstborn. What's the last one? Did we say locust? I can't remember which one we did. Anyways, here's all 10 of them right there. Y'all can look and see which one we forgot out of that, because I heard so many multiple, sometimes I just called one of them out. So there we had the 10 plagues. Let's go back to this side. After they left Israel, where did they find themselves trapped? The Red Sea. So what did God do to save the Israelites when they're trapped at the Red Sea? He parted the waters. They got to walk through on dry land. About how many people were there at that time? 1,200,000, somewhere to 2 million. And you got to think, they're also talking about their livestock, their possessions, the things that they had and were able to take with them. All of them walked through on dry land. What happened to Pharaoh's army as he was following behind? Destroyed everything. Don't you think that gave peace of mind to all the Israelites? Thinking it's done. Pharaoh's army's gone. What a great thing. And God showed his power. What did God tell the Israelites? Why did God tell the Israelites to go to Mount Sinai? What were they going to get at Mount Sinai? The 10 Commandments. Okay, anyways, there's the same answer. 10 Commandments. So while Moses is up on the mountain getting the 10 Commandments, what did the Israelites make? A golden calf. What was Moses' response when he saw the golden calf? Can you imagine? Think of all these people who love these autographs from all these famous people. You have God's finger who has written down these 10 commandments, and you have them in your possession, and you get mad and you slam them down on the ground. But I kind of get it. You're sitting there in the presence of God and all the people down here after seeing all the wonderful things God's already done, and they've already turned back to the gods of the Egyptians. So what kind of food did God give the Israelites to eat? Manna from heaven. What did God instruct Moses and the people to build? The tabernacle. The tabernacle. He gave specific instructions on how to build it, what it looked like, every part of it. He gave specific instructions on what to do. All right, so all these blanks are the same. But Leviticus, chapters 1 through 7, you have the law of burnt and grain and peace and sin and guilt. What's that? Offerings. Offerings were made to say thank you to God or that I'm sorry to God. And that's what chapters 1 through 7 are about. 8 through 10, God shares his expectations and commandments for which tribe of Israel? The Levites. That's what the book's entitled, Leviticus. In 11 through 15, he talks about clean and unclean, all the purity. He wanted his people to be pure. And on 16, it was the Day of Atonement. So why did God call the Israelites back again to Mount Sinai? What book are we talking about now? So why did he call them back to Mount Sinai? To get a count. We have the tabernacle right there in the middle, and we have the Levites on three sides. We have Moses and Aaron and their sons in that front section, and then all the tribes are around, and they're supposed to get a count of all the people. God says, I want to get a census, and I want to have it documented. And now all that is found in the book of Numbers. In Numbers, we also have the wilderness of Paran. Moses sent 12 spies. What did they report about the land? Great abundance, that there were giants. How long were they gone? 40 days. What did 10 of the spies say? Can't do it. We got fortified cities. These are men of war. We've got giants over there. We cannot take it. What did the 2 spies say? We are well able to overcome them. Let's go take possession of it. What did they say about the land? What was so special about this land? It flowed with milk and honey, and they brought back what? Grapes. Fruit from the land. What is about to take place? Now we're in Deuteronomy. What's about to take place at the beginning of Deuteronomy? Do what? Yeah, well, that's part of it, but they're about to go into the promised land. So we do get to that question in just a few minutes. But they're about to go into the promised land. They have already been traveling in the wilderness for how long? 40 years. How old was Moses right here before they go into the promised land? 120 years old. Did Moses lead them into the promised land? No. Why not? We talked about this morning, didn't he? He hit the rock. Thanks for listening this morning, by the way. What is the purpose of Deuteronomy? What do we find out? What's this whole book about? The law. It was a recommitment to the covenant. Moses gathered everybody back together again and said, let's go back through God's expectations again. This is who we're supposed to be. This is what he expects out of us. These are the Ten Commandments and the law. This is how we're supposed to live. And they were renewing that covenant that they had with God. What did Moses see at the top of Mount Nebo? The promised land. God, he says you can't go in, but I'll let you see it. And he goes up on Mount Nebo. Where is Moses buried? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. God's the only one that knows. Now we're in the book of Joshua. Who dies at the end of Deuteronomy and the beginning of Joshua? Moses. All right, good job. Who does God put to lead the children of Israel? Joshua. Joshua has been the person right there by Moses' side along the way, and now God puts Joshua to lead the children of Israel. What is the meaning of the name Joshua? God is salvation. God is salvation. The book covers Moses' death to Joshua's death. Approximately how many years was that? Anybody? 25. 25, good job. Bonus points. What instructions did God give Joshua before he became the leader? What's the basic overall thing? Be what? Be strong and courageous. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. In other words, you put all of your faith in me, I won't let you down. And if you do that, that will be the example to the people. And those were the instructions that he gave to Joshua. He said that multiple times at the end of Deuteronomy and the beginning of Joshua. What great fortified city did the Israelites conquer with God's help in Joshua 6? Jericho. How many days did the priests take the Ark of the Covenant and the men of war walk around the city one time? How many days did they do that? 6 days. How many times did they walk around on the seventh day? 7 times. What did all the people do at the end of the 7th time? They shouted as soon as they heard the trumpets blow from the priest. They shouted. So we got almost 2 million people shouting as loud as they can. Is that what caused the walls to fall? What caused the walls to fall? God. The power of God. We used the example of the Tennessee football game. And the stadium did not collapse because of all the loudness that was going on when they beat Alabama. So it goes to show, I'm sure it was loud, but it goes to show that this is tremendous power for a whole city to collapse. These walls going around this whole city collapsed as they shouted. So who was saved from Jericho? Why was Rahab saved? She hid the spies. She hid the spies. What was Joshua's message to the people in Joshua 24? Choose. Choose what? Choose this day who you will serve. How long were the people, after they had made this commitment, how long were the Israelites faithful to God? As long as who was alive? Joshua and all the elders were alive. They were all, hey, bonus points for her too. Yes. She cried. All right, so that's all the questions I got. One of the reasons I did this, one, it kind of gives you that remembrance of what all happened. But as we were going through those, you may not have known all the answers, but you knew most of them, didn't you? I wanted you to realize that you really do have a pretty good grasp of those 6 books of the Bible. That's great to know that you really have a good understanding of what God wants us to know through His Word. And what a blessing that is. So thank you for letting me review with y'all tonight. As we offer the invitation, I want to use that passage we just talked about in Joshua 24. Who's got the invitation song? What is it? The invitation song is 923. But the invitation, I want to talk about Joshua 24, verse 15. Because Joshua has all the people together. And we talked about it, but it says, if it is evil in your eyes to serve the Lord, choose this day whom you will serve, whether the gods your father served in the region beyond the river or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Sometimes don't we need that brought to our attention? Because sometimes don't we let the world get the best of us? Don't we find ourselves further away than we meant to? And sometimes we really need somebody to look at us to really say, you need to choose today who you're going to serve. Are you going to keep going down this path that leads you further and further away from God, or are you going to choose God? Because at some point in time, you really have to make the choice. You got to understand where you are and who you're living for. But I also love what Joshua said. He says, I need you to understand my choice has already been made. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Now, the one thing I know about every one of you that are here tonight, you want to serve God. But I also don't want you to wake up one morning thinking, I've been lying to myself because I'm really not. I want you to be like the Israelites and renew that covenant. That commitment that you have with God to say, you know what? I'm really going to be the person God wants me to be. I'm going to quit letting the world get in the way, these things that distract me and pull me away. I'm going to choose every day to live for God. We offer an invitation, and you may not have started this journey with God by being baptized into Christ, and we encourage you not to wait any longer. Or maybe you're sitting there saying, I really want the church to pray with me and pray for me. If there's anything we can do tonight, please let us know as we stand and sing.